See how we're doing. All right, I think we're ready for some live action here on YouTube. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. It is a pleasure to welcome you to another live video here. And today we are going to be talking about the 5 master skills of a fluent English speaker. All right, let's see if we've got live rolling over here. I think chat probably is like not working like usual. Or maybe it will be on, let's see. Hopefully this is working. Let me know in the chat if this is working. And hopefully we should be going live here. Let's see how we're doing. All right, looks like the chat is live. All right, very good. All right, let me get this set up here. So again, my screen, my phone is not displaying chat, so I will take time while I'm looking at things on my computer as I go through this. This should be an interesting video. I've never talked about all of these things in one video before. Maybe some of them I've never even talked about in any video, but I thought this would be interesting because I like thinking about the kind of deeper psychology and things about language learning rather than only like nouns and verbs and adjectives and that kind of thing. Because a lot of, because fluency is a skill that you must develop, you really have to have the right mindset and the right skills under the vocabulary in order to use it fluently. So that's what we'll be talking about today. All right, so let me know if you have any questions. Let's see as I erase the board here. Now it looks like the thumbnail went up backwards for this video. Of course, they're like doing something silly over here, but nice to see everybody here. All right, hopefully, yes, chat is working. It's good to see everybody here. All right, so I want to get into this. I will keep an eye on chat as I go through this, but hopefully I can get through all 5 of these different things and you'll see how they're connected. And then I'll be answering questions if people have any in between these. But if you have questions about, I don't know, fluency or other things in general, this video should probably answer most of those for you. Really, I want to cover everything in one video so people can know what to do. All right, so we're going to do today, what we're going to do today is contrast basically 2 different ways of learning. Or the different skills and the different mindset that people have. The English learner that's still struggling to speak versus let's see if we have enough space for that. Okay, how much space we have? This goes all the way over here. Okay. All right, so we're going to be talking about a couple of different things. So we're going to have 5 spaces here so you can keep track of everything. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 5 down here. All right. And so what we have on the left, this is the typical things for, we'll just say learners, but anyone who is still, like you would think of yourself as a learner rather than a fluent speaker already. And these are going to be the fluent speakers over here. So fluent. And I will do my best with my handwriting. I will actually try to write less in this video to make this a little bit easier for everybody. All right, so it looks like chat is working. Let's get into this. What you're going to see in this video, I want to show you how each of these skills, it's really 2 different mindsets for learning. And by mindset, I just mean the way you think about all kinds of things related to language learning. So related to language learning, related to communication, and how if you start thinking more like on this column over here rather than this one, you will really feel a lot more confident, you will feel more relaxed, you will improve faster. Everything just does better on this side rather than on this one. Okay, so it's not like a bad thing if you're over here. This is kind of the natural way that most people learn, and so we're going to talk about like kind of different ways of learning. Now, the last thing I will say before we get into this list is that some of these things that I'll talk about, they might seem a little bit weird or odd, and you might think, well, that it like doesn't seem very rational or reasonable, but you have to just kind of trust me on this one. So part of what we're looking at over here, again, these are ways of thinking. And so typically the learner way, we can think about this as there's a lot of, if I can fit this in here, there's going to be fear, in this approach. And there's going to be worry. So a lot of learners have various doubts and fears and worries about things, and so that's not just about the language, that's also about themselves and being able to communicate. And so over on this side, we really want to think about trust. And actually, I'm going to say faith. I know this sounds a little bit weird, but you'll see this in a minute, you'll see why. But as we go through the system, really it will make a lot of sense as we go through, and each of these things is connected to the others. All right. Hopefully this makes sense. Learner for life. Let's go. All right, let's do it. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about mindset is all about listening. Listening. All right. Now the first thing, let's see, I'll put our numbers up here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the first one has to do with listening, and usually what you have for learners is basically have divided attention. Divided attention. Now, this marker might not be so good. Let me try a different one. So divided attention, and this one over here, and it's a tough skill to develop, but I promise you it will affect everything in your life, not just your ability to communicate, but this is actual like complete attention, or we'll just say 100% attention. Now, what do I mean by this? When I'm talking about attention, I mean in a conversation when you're just listening to the other person speak. Or even if you're not in a conversation and you're listening to a lesson or something like that. So usually what happens with a learner, so someone who is not yet fluent, they have many worries about what they're going to say or what they're going to do, or even they're thinking about dinner or something that's unrelated to the conversation. So you might be in a conversation with someone and you might be listening, I don't know, maybe 60%. You're listening about 60% to what they're saying. So your attention is focused about 60% on what they're saying, and maybe like 10% or 20% you're thinking about yourself, like trying to really process what they're saying, or you're thinking about what you want to say next in the conversation. There's a lot of preparation that goes on in the mind of people when they're trying to speak. And again, this is not just language learners, this is really people in general. So often people will have divided attention where they're speaking with someone, but their attention isn't really focused on the other person. Okay, and this is a really tough skill to do. So again, this is not just language learners, this is people all over, but I promise you, if you can have 100% attention or get like as close to that as possible, that's really going to help you listen to other people and actually learn more. So again, what happens in the mind of a typical learner, they have divided attention mostly because they're worried about what they're going to say next. So they're trying to listen to the other person, that's part of this, and they're also trying to think about what they want to say, and maybe their attention is also divided into something else, like they're thinking about, again, dinner, or what did they do yesterday, or well, I'm kind of bored with this conversation, what do I want to do instead? Even as you watch this video, you will notice that your attention might shift to something else, and then you'll think, oh, what am I doing for dinner tonight? Oh, what did Drew just say? I wasn't listening to that. So this will happen. This is a natural thing that happens, and it's very difficult to control your attention because your mind is always thinking about different things, all right? But I promise you, if you can really just try to do this, part of this just comes from relaxing, but also the most important part that I like to remind learners of is that the fluency and the learning really comes from what the other person says. So if you're in a conversation, you saying something to the other person isn't really helping you become a more fluent speaker. What you really should be doing, especially if you're in a conversation with a native speaker, is you should be paying very close attention, really 100% attention to what the other person is saying. And I notice this in my own conversations. Remember, I am a learner as well. So when I'm speaking with people, some days if I'm tired, I'm not really trying to focus, or people say things, I'm just like, yeah, what did you say? I'm not really paying attention to that person very carefully. All right. And I notice that I don't learn things. I don't absorb as much information. But when I do really pay attention and I make the effort just to focus on them without worrying about what I'm going to say, I'm really just listening to the other person, and often I will find just new things I can learn, so new vocabulary, new grammar structures, whatever. But also, I find I have better conversations with people. So when I'm not worried about what I want to say, I'm only listening to the other person, I'm really going to feel a lot better and make them feel better too. So people want to feel listened to. Everybody likes to speak, everybody likes to express themselves, but fewer of us are trying to listen to the other person. So there are many good reasons to try to practice this skill, to try to develop this, but I promise you, it's often the fear and worry that you won't know how to respond that stops you from really just giving 100% to the other person by listening. All right, so you have to give, again, this is why I mentioned a little bit of trust, a little bit of faith on this side over here, because this requires you to relax and think, okay, I'll be fine. Maybe I won't get to say exactly what I want to say or something. We'll cover that in just a moment. But the important thing here is that you're really spending your time trying to listen to the other person as best as possible. So you really want to focus your attention, because that's where the lesson is, okay? The lesson is not coming from you. You don't really become a more fluent speaker by speaking. I know this sounds weird, but you actually become more fluent by getting lots more input from the other person. So the more understandable messages you get from other people, the more you will feel fluent. And it's much easier to learn those things if you're paying attention for them, okay? Now I'm going to go by chat, make sure everybody understands this. Should be going around okay. Should be, let's see. Oh my God, it's my first time on a live stream. Glad to hear it. All right, it looks like everybody's still with me though. Hopefully there are probably no questions about this. It should be pretty easy to understand. This is one of those skills where it's easy to know what to do, but hard in practice. Again, the mind is naturally looking for other things to do. It's always, you have like a monkey mind where you're constantly searching for other things. Your mind wants to stay like interested in many things at the same time when you should really focus. All right. If you have any questions about that, let me know. I think everything makes sense over here, hopefully. Someone said go to an English-speaking country. This is not necessary. Again, none of the things on this list will be about going to an English-speaking country. Again, like going to an English-speaking country is one of those things that people think they need because they need to be like surrounded by English, but you can be surrounded by English anywhere in the world. I mean, actually, it's much more efficient with the internet to get this information than it is to try to go and maybe even if you're living in an English-speaking country, without having someone to explain things to you, it's just really much more efficient to get lots of understandable messages, even like this. So if you're watching this video, you will be learning a lot from me just by getting this input, even if you don't speak. All right. Hopefully does everybody get this? Click the like button if this makes sense. That's going to be the fastest way for me to know, even faster than you typing a comment. All right. So remember, listening is the key. That's like the foundation of everything. So if you can listen, I promise you, you will feel much more relaxed. You won't be worrying about what you want to say. We'll get to that. But at just the foundation of having a better conversation and learning more is all about listening. So if you have divided attention because you're worried about what you want to say, you're feeling nervous, or you're thinking about something else, try to control that and just relax and listen. Okay, you have to have a little bit of trust and faith in the approach. I think everybody gets that though. All right. Now, moving on, so related to this same kind of fear and worry, we're going to have this idea connected to the next one, and the same thing over here. Now, usually what happens with learners is they're trying to force, they want to have like forced, F-O-R, whoops. I can never spell and speak at the same time. F-O-R-C-E-D, forced, I'm just going to say prep here. So if I have a shorter word to write, I can write it more neatly. So forced preparation, and then we'll contrast that with natural prep, natural preparation. Now again, we still have this element of fear over here that learners want to try to get as much information as possible because they never know what they're going to speak about. All right, this is part of the reason why they want to just like learn, give me a list of, the 100 most common words or something like that, and that information is really popular for learners because they think they need it. Again, it's the worry and the fear that causes them to think that they need this information. And often what happens is they learn a lot of information that either they don't remember it or they don't end up using it in real conversations. Okay, so there's some times where you might learn something and you actually get to use it in a conversation, but often that's not the case. All right. So by forced preparation, I mean you're trying to collect as much information. You want to build a large vocabulary as quickly as possible. That's the goal. And so what you do is you try to learn as much as you can. You want to get lists of vocabulary, and it might not even be about topics that are really useful or applicable for your life. And then the opposite is to have the natural preparation where you really kind of trust and you relax and you have the faith that you will get the right vocabulary when you need it. All right. Now, this is something that I have been practicing for a long time as a language learner. So I used to be like this and used to think I should be trying to get as much information as possible. I really want to be prepared for anything. But the preparation actually comes from just being aware. Again, it's really the same idea of listening to kind of like yourself, listening to your life. I know this might sound like it almost sounds like it's not very logical advice. But the truth is you can never really be perfectly prepared for a situation. It's much better to just relax and know the kinds of things and focus on the kinds of things that you need for your life at that moment. All right. So you really want to be focusing. You'll notice that's a trend with all these things on this column over here. So these are more, again, faith-based, where we're trying to think about things and not worry so much about what we need. You really have to relax and allow these things to happen. So as an example, in my own life, I didn't think when I was first coming into Japan to learn lots of Japanese words about maternity or like, women, in pregnancy and things like that. Like I could have studied that. But like other things that are related to that, like it had no real use in my life. Maybe there's a chance I might use some of that vocabulary, but it just really wasn't a good thing for me to focus on. But when my wife was having our first child, so when my older daughter Aria was coming along, then it became important for me to learn that vocabulary. So without me trying to force that, like, I will probably be going to a hospital and talking with doctors and things like that, I should probably learn that vocabulary, and that's when I naturally learned that. Okay? So you're people following what I'm saying over here. Hopefully this makes sense. All right. So again, the basic idea is it's typically like the fear and worry that people have that drive them to do these things over here. So if you feel nervous, like you need, security and you really want to know every English word, that's why people love to get all that information. But the people who actually have some trust and some faith, and part of that is just listening. Like you listen, you pay attention to what's happening in your life. So if you know you're going to be taking a trip or you're going to be going to this kind of restaurant or you're meeting certain kinds of people, then focus on that particular thing. You don't have to know everything. I mean, even native speakers don't know everything about every bit of vocabulary. I've probably done this, shown you this graph before, but about 2%. This is not going to be a very accurate graph, but about 2% of vocabulary is needed. So this is the whole, imagine all of the words in the English language. They're like, 170,000 words in common use, something like that. This is not an exact number. But the point is only 2% of this is used in 98% of communication in written, so like text form in magazines, newspapers, or on TV shows, that kind of thing. So even the word the by itself, just the word the, is like 7% of all written communication and most spoken communication as well. All right. So instead of trying to learn everything, it's much better to just focus on the things that you need for your life. So rather than trying to get a list of, some, particular idioms or something like that, you should be focused on common situations for your life. And that's where the vocabulary comes from. So you will get it naturally if you relax and you pay attention. So in the same way that you will pay attention to things in a conversation, so you're listening to what the other person says, you should also be paying attention in your own life to what you need. So when people ask me, Drew, what should I be learning right now? I ask them, tell me about your life. What's going on in your life? What vocabulary do you need? What are the situations? All right. So some people, maybe they need to learn, one kind of topic, and some people need to learn about something else. But rather than trying to force yourself to cover everything, and then you really don't get fluent in much of that vocabulary at all, because you're just like your attention is divided, your effort is divided among lots of different topics or lots of different vocabulary or grammar, and you don't really get fluent in any of it. So you have a very maybe low level understanding. I talk about this or I have talked about this in other videos about the different levels of vocabulary knowledge. All right. So you might have just exposure to the language where you've heard something before, and then you've got awareness where you really understand that, and then you've got ownership where you have the highest level where you really feel confident about using something. So typically people who are using this forced preparation approach where they're trying to learn as much as possible, they have maybe an exposure or an awareness level of that vocabulary, but they really don't feel confident using it. All right. This is where you become confident using the vocabulary. And the great thing about this is when you focus on this vocabulary, that allows you to speak about a wider range of things. So even if I'm learning a specific thing, like the target is, maternity, vocabulary, I can take that same vocabulary and often use it when I'm talking about other things. So I might use idioms from relationships or other things while I'm talking about business or while I'm talking about sports or something like that. But the point is I know that information really well. I'm fluent in that vocabulary, and so I know how to use that when talking about other things. All right. Let me follow the chat here. Hopefully this makes sense. Let's see. All right, so let's see. Julian says, I'm currently focusing on the most common phrasal verbs. I believe that if you don't learn phrasal verbs, it's pretty difficult to get fluency. Yes, so phrasal verbs are a very common part of the English language. I recommend people learning phrasal verbs as well. This is how people are going to understand. And again, even learning something like phrasal verbs, that's a great thing to focus on because it can be applied to almost anything you're talking about. So again, that's a great example of something where you would focus on that. That's why we have a whole program, the Visual Guide to Phrasal Verbs, is just talking about that because this one kind of vocabulary is so useful and it's so easy to apply it to everything in life. All right. But yes, this is the thing where we want to really focus on whatever that is. But the point is relax and think about what you really need for your life. Now, if you're at like an even higher level, let's say you know a lot of phrasal verbs already, then you want to be focusing on a particular topic, whatever that is. So this is why Fluent for Life is structured the way it is, so people can learn with a particular topic and really focus on that. So if you need to learn about sports, maybe you're going to a baseball game, you watch the whole lesson set about, baseball and how the vocabulary from that can be used in different situations. It's a really great thing to just focus on one specific thing. All right. So remember, it's your mind will be looking for, I need to get as much as possible, but you need to control yourself. And that's why this is a skill. That's why I call these the 5 master skills. So if you can do this, and even if you might not be doing it already, just begin thinking, like remind yourself, hey, am I trying to just learn a bunch of vocabulary, or am I actually learning something that I can begin applying in my own life that's really useful for me? All right, let's see. Levi DeRed says, how to reach the level of ownership. Watch my video about that. So I have a specific video about that. You should maybe look back like 2 or 3 months, but if you look at the live videos on the channel, you should see that. And you should be able to find the specific video for that. All right. So it actually says that it's like the 3 levels of vocabulary, and you're probably stuck here between awareness and ownership. So watch that video. Does this make any sense to people? Everybody understand where we're going so far? So instead of trying to be, again, you notice how these are similar. One goes into the other very nicely here. So divided attention, you've got divided attention here with what you're learning, rather than being focused on one particular thing. All right, Keiko says, hi, teacher, I have a question. Is please don't a word that should not be used? Is that a shocking word? It's very difficult for the Japanese to use please. Well, no, there's nothing wrong with that. Please don't do something. Like if you're working at a museum or something and you say like, please don't take pictures over here. You can, there's a more kind of passive way to say that. You can just say like, photography is not allowed at the museum or something. So often, and this is a cultural thing about Japan, so if you want to say like directly to someone like, please don't take pictures, that might feel a little bit forceful to you, like you feel like you're being a little bit too strong, but you can say, I'm sorry, photography is not allowed here. And so that way it doesn't sound like it's your fault or you're telling, a customer or like a guest or something to do that. So please don't do something is perfectly fine. And it also depends on who you're speaking with. So I might be, if I'm talking with my daughters, I might just say like, stop doing that. I might say like, please don't do something. Typically like a parent will begin being a little bit nicer. So if my kids they can't sit still at the dinner table, we go out to a restaurant or something, they're climbing on the chairs. The first time I might say like, please don't do that. And then I say like, okay, stop doing that. And like, I want to train them to like be quick about responding to things. So I will not continue to give lots of those. I'll just say stop, or I will like put them down in the seat or something like that. So these are a couple different situations, and it's important to remember the specific situations when you think about vocabulary. All right, but certainly that's fine to use that. So yes, it's difficult because the nuances of the languages on both sides don't much. You probably mean match for that, M-A-T-C-H, they don't match. Yes, again, it depends on the situation, and this is why I often teach people, pretty much every video is really reminding you that the vocabulary by itself doesn't mean anything. You have to be connecting that vocabulary with a situation. So are you speaking with customers where you need to be a bit more polite? Are you speaking with children where you can be a bit more specific and like command them to do something? All right, Sayuri again. What do you do when you come across good expressions or vocabulary in real-time conversations with native speakers? I always take mental notes about those and they are gone by the time the conversation ends. Often what I will do, this is a great thing, but like I will bring that into the conversation. So like today I was just like, I was trying to remember like the Japanese word for extension cord. So like a power cord. And then like I had to ask somebody, hey, can I have like an extension cord? What do you call that? And so I was asking that. And then I will, just to help me remind myself of that thing, I will talk about that specific vocabulary. So I will have a conversation about the vocabulary. I will say, wow, that was a really interesting word. Like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. So I get excited about the language, and that gives me the opportunity to use it and try to like repeat it in the conversation to make it more memorable. And I can also say like, is there another way to say that? So I kind of turn it into a lesson, but not like I'm asking them to be a teacher. It's more of a fun kind of game thing. All right. So if you can't just remember it, maybe you hear something, I would highlight that in the conversation. It's okay to do that. Nobody's going to be upset. Most people will be happy if you're interested in the language. So if I use like, some weird expression and you understand what I mean, you're like, oh, wow, I've never heard that before. You could have a conversation about that specific word or just talk about it for a little bit. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, do we need to focus on particular group of words to speak fluently? I'll talk about that in just a moment, but so far the point is to really think and listen to yourself, listen to your surroundings, listen to your life, and that just means to pay attention to the things that are interested or interesting to you. So what is useful and important for you at this moment in your life? Without trying to think like, well, what vocabulary will I need next week? Or what vocabulary will I need like 2 years from now? Don't worry about that. All right, so it's the worrying side over here that will cause you to think about that. It's much better just to pay attention. Hey, right now I work in a restaurant. I should probably learn a lot of useful vocabulary about working in a restaurant. It's pretty easy, all right? But you don't have to think, well, maybe next year I'll take a trip to a mountain and I need to learn this. Like, don't worry about that. Learn the vocabulary you need for your life right now. All right, the human mind, again, it's the worrying, all of the things over here about like fear and worry and doubt. And the things over here are just, it's all about trust and openness, and you allow yourself to get that vocabulary when you need it. You should know what you need for your life. All right, so just listen to that. All right, hopefully this makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. What up, Drew? Just got here. Hello from Brazil. Nice to see everybody over here. Let's see. All right. Seems we need to, yeah, okay. So remember, I'll talk a little bit about more like the kind of way we focus on things in just a moment, but hopefully this makes sense. You'll notice the foundation of this, like instead of having fear and worry, again, we want to have trust, openness, relaxation, because those are the things that will help us learn also, but help us speak. All right, so let's keep going over here. So what we notice, like again, these things blend very easily into the next step for each of these skills. So when you have forced preparation, what you're trying to do is collect as much information as possible, and usually as wide as you can. So you get a vocabulary list of as many things as possible, and so we have typically we have like a focus on individual lessons. I'll just say individual. So individual lessons. And here we're talking about building networks. Now I've given a similar lesson about this, but like a couple times, but I'd like to do this again. I know many new people watch my videos, and so hopefully they can all learn about this as well. So if I imagine I'm trying to teach you like a new word in an alien language. So I begin, let's say I have a flashcard. So this is flashcard number 1 over here, and I'm just going to show you one thing, and I draw something on it like this. Let's see here. So I draw this, and I teach you the word, let's just say ak. Nah, that's going to confuse people like okay or something. we'll do okay? So this is not a real word. This is not English. I'm just using this as an example in an alien language if I'm trying to teach you an alien language. I use an alien language because people from all over the world watch these videos, and I don't want to use like only Japanese or French or something like that because the lesson is less helpful. Now, if I show you a picture of this and I say so the word, the target word is and I show you this, you have a pretty general idea of what I'm talking about. I'm probably not talking about a car or something else. You can have a general idea of what I mean by this. So just in the chat right now, tell me what you think this word means in the alien language. Let me know, all right? This is just a little experiment and an example of how learners and teachers are often thinking differently about information. All right, so let me know what you think this is. What is What does that mean? All right, let's go. Be quick so we can get through this. Let's go. All right, this should be a pretty easy thing. If you can guess what that is, what do you think this is? Let's see, someone said, all right, it says, Dran says a chair. Anyone else? Is chair. Do I mean chair when I mean this? All right, let's see. Gertruda says a chair. V says a chair. Also, a couple people said a chair. Okay, so again, as a teacher, I know what I mean by this word, but you might not. Now, you can look at this, and means chair. Now I'm going to give you another lesson. So imagine this as just like a lesson by itself. All right. So I give you a picture of something and I tell you what the word is and you think, well, it must mean chair. So a couple of people had that idea. Now I'm going to give you something different. Now, I give you the second lesson here and something a little bit different in the picture. Now, what do I mean by What do you think means? Does it still mean chair? Do you think it still means chair, or does it mean something else? What do you think? Now, these are not the best pictures over here. We got, let's see, spot. I don't know if that meant, let's see, what, furniture, table. So we got table and furniture. We'll just put like fern over here so I can write quickly. Furniture, table. All right. And now let's say I do something else here. So this would be lesson 3. What do you think I mean by that? Well, things. Yeah, it could be things. I wouldn't make it that difficult. But I suppose it could be things, yes. Now, I know you can, please forgive me if these pictures are not very good. I'm just trying to do them very quickly. But hopefully this makes sense. What would... All right, good thinking over there. Interesting. Draw. All right. So would. Oh, a couple different people said would. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So again, I know what I'm talking about. But do you? When people are teaching a lesson and when you learn a language as a child in your native language, this is how you're really learning. You don't really get one lesson and learn much from it because your parents might say something and you don't really understand what that means. And I explain this typically like a target. So at first you get something like and you can imagine in your mind you're trying to understand what this word means, and maybe you have like, I kind of think it means something like it doesn't mean animal. I'm guessing like it's not an animal of some kind. So your mind is like, well, it's not animal over here. That's a completely different thing. But you still don't know exactly what I'm talking about. And so the answers here, they show that people don't really understand because, again, like without me really making it clear and without you getting a number of examples, it's really difficult to understand something in English, all right, or in the alien language. And this is why most people teach using translations. So the opposite, when I talk about individual lessons, is you will just get a single lesson about something and the teacher will just give you a translation of what that means. And so you will think, oh, okay, like means, whatever that is in your native language, all right? Now, in this example, by I mean furniture. Now, I'm just giving you a translation in English. I could give you many more, but the point is that the actual way you should be learning is the network is what creates the memorable and understandable lesson in your mind. So yes, I could be talking about furniture. I could be talking about the material as well. Like if I also gave you another, like if I had like, here's like a tree and I've got, something and I show an arrow pointing to some pieces of like some wood planks or something, then you would be like, wow, okay, now I really got it. I know exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about the material, okay? Now, what people are usually doing in like the kind of like fear-based and like the hurry way of trying to learn a language is the only way really to do this is to just try to get one lesson, you get a translation, and then you move on to the next thing. Okay? But you really can't remember it and you don't really understand it like a native speaker. And it's the understanding of it like a native speaker that gets you fluent. All right. Now notice something else that's really interesting about this. I could give you these cards in a different order. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, so let's say So maybe I actually mean furniture, but let's say the target word is wood instead. Now I might begin with this one, like begin with number 1 and then maybe 2, 3, 4, something like that. But the order of those things also makes a difference. But in general, it's the network, it's all of them together that improve your fluency. Is everybody getting this idea? So I'm trying to help you try to basically remind you of how you learned your native language and even how you learn things now in your native language, because this is it. Typically you get one example of something. You might hear a new word or grammar point or something, and you probably don't really remember it. This is where I talked about before in that previous video about getting exposure to the language. So if I just tell you something like this and I don't give you a translation of it, that's how you're learning it in your native language. You really just have to try to understand, like, do I really feel confident about my understanding of a particular word? So when you try to get individual lessons like this, where you think of one thing like, did I really understand that? Someone told me this means chair and now I just need to remember that. Or it means wood or furniture or whatever the word is. But it's really the network that gets you fluent. It's the network that helps you understand like a native speaker. Now this is just one example. This is what I call naturally varied review. This is just one example of this. Another one is actually hearing the same vocabulary from different speakers. So you might hear one person say something and another person says the same thing. All right? So even if you remember something, a teacher in a lesson might be speaking very clearly, but maybe in real life conversations you hear something and it's not so clear. So someone, instead of saying and being very clear about it, you hear something else like And you're like, what did that person say? I couldn't hear it very well. And this is why you need to get lots of different examples to really make that vocabulary or grammar or whatever, to make that clear in your mind. Hopefully this makes sense. Let me see if but I don't understand what you mean with Again, yes. So Nils is just asking something let me explain that again. I really want to make sure people understand this. When you're learning a language, even as a native speaker learning your native language, and you don't get a translation of something, you will probably not understand what it means. Like you might kind of get it. Like if, again, we have like a target where you think, okay, maybe it's a thing, maybe it means wood, maybe it means this. You have a general idea of what it means. So you might have, let's say, like 80% confidence that you understand what a word means. But this confidence level goes up as you get more examples of something. All right? So when I'm like, just right now for this example, is not a word in English. It's like a word in an alien language that I'm just making up for this example, just so you can remember what it feels like to learn this way. So like the meaning of it for me right now means furniture. So I'm giving you these different examples. I just added this one as an example if I mean wood. So if I mean wood, I would probably not be like teaching it in this way. I would take like the order of these and change them. I would give you this one first. But even if I change the order, it's all of them together that make that vocabulary very strong in your mind. All right? Let me know if that makes sense. All right, so next, what does the cat ruin all the in the house mean in the alien language? Yeah, so in that case, like, if the word I'm actually trying to teach you is furniture, then like, yes, I would just keep showing you more pieces of furniture. And I would probably show you those pieces of furniture with different materials. So you might have a plastic chair or a metal table or a stone bookshelf or something like that. So that's how I'm making it very clear for you that I'm not talking about the material, I'm talking about the thing. And so it's why it's very important as a teacher for me to understand the way people think about vocabulary. All right, and this is why I give a bunch of different examples. Again, this is why we designed Frederick like this. So Frederick, the app, when it's teaching you vocabulary, we give you 4 different slightly varied images for what each word means. So you can start learning that, and it's a lot easier to understand with a network than it is with just one example. All right, so when people are trying to get as many lessons as possible, really the only way to do this is with translations. And the translations stop you from speaking because you're trying to think about translations in your conversations instead of thinking about like, okay, I need to understand this in English and now I can use it fluently. All right. But when you're building networks, notice how these things are connected to each other. Because I have like the idea of natural preparation, I naturally want to just focus on this particular group of words, just like I'm doing here. I'm trying to build a network, whatever that vocabulary is. It could be working at a restaurant, or it could be even buying food at a restaurant. So I'm ordering food, whatever. But I'm building a network just about this thing. I'm not trying to learn about every different thing and learn it very quickly and then forget what I learned. I want to spend time focusing on that information. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see over here. Drew, you look just like Tom Hanks. Yes, I continue. I made a whole video about Tom Hanks, actually, so people can watch that. How can I build a network of something more abstract? For example, the phrasal verb get over. Julian, I think you have the visual guide to phrasal verbs in your account, and you see how we use those different things. So you would get, let's say we have just focusing on the word get, so phrasal verbs with get, just by itself, like you have in the program. And so you can hear and see and understand different examples of like what it means to get something. So it could mean taking a position, you were controlling something, you were receiving something, but typically it's moving from one position to a different position, like it's moving from someplace else to you, or you are moving to take that position. Okay, so that's the basic idea of get by itself. Now, as we go a little bit deeper, we might have like get up, or get down, or get something like that, to get over whenever we're talking about these different things. As we get more examples of that, and in the program we can't give like thousands and thousands of examples because it's really not necessary, but you can typically find those things by yourself. Like if you go to Google and we want to look at like 10 different contexts for get up or get over. What was the word you asked? So get over. So get over, like I could have a physical thing where like I'm on this side of a wall and I need to get over the wall. So I need to get from one position to the other. It's the same idea of me taking a different position. So I'm in this position here, I'm taking a different one. All right. And so as you get these different examples of get, then you really feel strongly about get, even just the word by itself. But you will also, like if you have get up or get over or get down, it's the same thing. So if I imagine I'm sleeping and I get up, like now I'm like, oh, I'm moving from a lower position to a higher position. All right, it's the same basic idea. So I can have many examples of get. I could have many examples of get up also. So I could have get up, like I'm telling someone to get like to a physical higher location. Like I'm standing, let's say I'm standing up here and my friend is down here. I say, hey, get up here. Get up here. So I'm telling him, like, he's not waking up, he's not asleep in this example, but he's coming up here. He's moving from this position to this position up here. He's getting that position. But you notice, like, if I try to explain this to you in your native language, it's a lot less helpful because you're just getting a translation. It's the same thing of like, okay, it's difficult to help you understand something, here's a translation. But you don't really get it. You don't really get it. All right, so notice I'm giving you an even different use of get here, like to understand something. So we're moving from a position of not understanding to a position of understanding something. Now I got it. I understand. And as you hear all of these different contexts, just by focusing on one word like that, it will really help you understand that thing. And you can get this information, by yourself. Even we have a video about get on the YouTube channel. Yeah. And as well, again, you'll find this in Fluent for Life, in the visual guide to phrasal verbs. All of those examples are about focus and trying to give you naturally varied review. All right, let me know if that makes sense. All right, Nils has got that. All right, let's see. Drew, how about the word rip? How can we manage the different meanings? Well, again, you want to take these things and you would hear them in different situations. So when does something get ripped? So if I take a shirt or something, I might, like if I'm like the Incredible Hulk, I'm going to rip my shirt. So I take something like that to rip something. All right, so you might look at a physical example, and this is why in the visual guide to phrasal verbs, and even in Fluent for Life, we try to give physical examples of things so you can see how they work the same way native children are getting those examples. So you might see something like rip, and then you just see that thing in different context, and as you hear these, just like the idea of get, you really develop a strong understanding the same way a native understands the word. Now, a native is like they probably won't explain this the same way I'm explaining it because I've spent 20 years thinking about this stuff. But this is kind of subconsciously what's happening to natives when they think about getting something. Like, oh, I just got a job. So there was like a position over here and I took that position. Or I received something like a present. But that's what it means to get something. So understanding get like a native, we don't get that from just getting a translation. Notice I'm using get again and again in slightly different ways. It's all naturally varied review. All right, does everybody get it? Does everybody get this? Do you get it? Are you getting what I'm giving you? Do you get it? All right, let's see, learning like a baby. How much time getting fluency needs using this method? Excuse me. It basically, as long as you need to feel that aha moment in your mind. So if I'm teaching you, like my goal is to try to give you that feeling as fast as possible. And then even then, you probably should be getting more examples of like understanding something. So I could give you like a 1-minute lesson about any vocabulary, and then just to help you remember it and feel more confident about it in conversations, I would have you listen to that in a real conversation. I would have you listen to that from different people describing that same word or using that same word. So the understanding is usually pretty quick if you understand like I'm teaching you here. And then maybe just a little bit of review, like maybe the next day you're hearing it. This is why we organize Fluent for Life the way it is. So all the lesson sets are structured so that you're listening to something, you learn it like a native, but you continue to hear it in different ways throughout the lesson. Or you might see it or read it or watch it in a video, something like that. And so the point is to focus on something, to hear things again and again in different ways, or from different speakers, or in different tenses, at different times, whatever, even at different speeds. Okay, so it doesn't take long to understand when you learn this way. And again, the goal of fluency is to get to that point of that aha moment, like, now I got it. I got it. I understand. I got it. You get it? All right, do you get it now? You got it? So get, you will hear this word a lot. A very common word, and this is why I try to cover this. I've covered this actually many, many times in lessons. Same thing with like have. So get and have, because they can have like slightly different meanings, and as you learn all of these through different examples rather than trying to get translations. But this is the power of building networks, because if you build a network around the word get and you really understand that, then you can start using get whatever the conversation. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. So you know what talking about, like to get over. So Julian mentioned get over before. So I gave you the example of like, here's a wall. I'm on this side of the wall. I need to get to this position over here. Now there are a few ways I could do that. I could get through this thing. Maybe if I break a hole in this wall, I could get through it. Or I could try to get over the wall. Now we take a physical idea of this, and then we have a more figurative meaning of like, let's say I was dating a girl for a while and we broke up. So to break up, that's another phrasal verb, to break up, to break into different pieces. All right, so we split up. All right, so if I'm over here and now like the thing that I need to get over is like my sadness about that. So I'm thinking about this girl every day. Oh, I wish we were still together. You know, I need to get over her. Okay, I need to forget about that. I need to move on with my life. Okay, so it's like an obstacle or something that I can't make forward progress. I need to get over that. So you often hear this in movies where people talk about like getting over a relationship. We're talking about moving on, just like we might get over a wall. All right, and as you get, and you notice how you get these examples from me, and your mind is like, now I understand. That's the whole point. I'm trying to give you as many aha moments as possible. All right, but let me know if people do not get this. learning the second language and relearning the world. Yeah. So again, what we're trying to do, instead of learning individual words, because we're scared, we're nervous, we want to learn as many things as possible, we actually want to build our network. It's the network that gets you fluent. All right, it's just another way of talking about naturally varied review. All right, let's keep going here. So we want to get through 4 and 5, but let me know if anything so far does not make sense. Hopefully I'm getting this. Get over it can be something like to give up something to. Yeah, it's basically like forgetting something and moving on or moving away from that thing, to get over something. You can also get over a sickness. Okay, so same thing. The sickness is the obstacle we need to get. You know, I can get over that thing, but again, I can also get through that thing. Same idea. So I need to get over my sickness. Notice how these things, they easily blend from one into the other. So if we have divided attention and we're trying to learn too many things, we don't remember them very well, and that's why we don't speak. But if we have focused attention and we just relax and let the things come to us as we need them, and we build the networks we need, then we're naturally building fluency very easily. I've just proved that right in this video. All right. Let's see, Eunice got it. Glad to hear it. All right, moving on. So we'll do number 4 right here. Now, notice as we keep doing this, look at this again. Each one of these things blends naturally into the next one. So we have like rigid. So a rigid vocabulary and a flexible. So again, notice how each one of these things blends into the next one. They lead from one to the next. So a rigid vocabulary, something that's rigid, like this marker is rigid. If I put a lot of pressure on it, I might snap the marker, I might break the marker, but my hand is very flexible. It's flexible like that. And so what we want to do is, as we build networks, we really feel a lot more confident about our vocabulary because we have different ways of saying different things. So I just gave you the example before. I could get over something, or I could get around it. I could get through that different thing. All right, these are different ways of expressing the same basic idea. So I have a problem or an obstacle or something I need I need to solve that problem. So I can get over that problem. I can get around that problem. I can get through that problem somehow. All right, but when you learn this way, when you try to get individual lessons, you only get one thing. You don't feel very confident about it, so you need to get a translation. This gives you a very rigid vocabulary, and this is really what gets people stuck in conversations, because they have only basically one way of saying something. So they have one idea. This thing means this, so this thing in English means this in my native language, and if I forget that thing, oh no, that's where I get stuck, and this causes a lot of frustration in conversations. Okay? But the flexible vocabulary comes from building the network. You learn lots of different ways of expressing things. Again, like people will tell me about my programs or whatever, they might watch one lesson of something and think like I didn't get fluent. It's like, well, you don't get fluent from one lesson. All right? You can't get fluent from an individual lesson. It's really difficult to do that, because the mind doesn't work that way. Like the mind is looking for lots of different pieces of information to make something understandable. All right? It's the same reason that you have 2 eyes, okay, or 2 ears. So if you take your hand and cover one of your eyes and you try to look at something, you can see generally where it is, just like this target up here. I can see generally, like I know there's something in front of me, but I can't tell how far away it is. I need to open both of my eyes to know exactly where that thing is. So if I have only one eye, it's like getting only one lesson. But if I have many eyes like this, that's how I really know I can focus and know exactly where something is. All right, and that's why we have 2 ears, same idea. So if I cover one of my ears and can't hear something very well, I know there's a general area where a sound is coming from, but it's much easier if I have 2 ears. I can find that much better. This is called triangulation. So I'm making a triangle between my eyes and a target, or my ears and a target. A triangle. All right. So make sure everybody's getting this. You're really a great coach, not only a teacher. You give me self-confidence. I appreciate that. Glad to hear. All right. Yes, I'm glad to hear that's helpful. Remember, it begins with faith. I know this sounds like a weird word to use about language learning, but you really must relax. All right. The reason we do this is because we can't possibly try to figure out everything that's happening or be prepared for everything. It's just not possible. But what we can do is get very good at listening and get very good at being prepared for the right situations when they happen. And it's just a very natural process. But it's kind of the opposite from what we are told to do. So almost all advice about things is you want to be on this side over here. The natural everyday common advice about things is try to learn as many words as you can. Here's how to learn 20,000 words or something. But you don't want to do that. You want to actually just focus on the things that you need for your life, and then you build the networks around those that gives you a flexible vocabulary. Okay. All right, Dan G says, it's basically about forgetting your native language and creating the mindset a native speaker uses. Yeah, but just remember, this is the same thing you do in your native language as well. So it's like applying the mindset and the learning strategy of your native language to English. That's all you're doing. All right, so we're not giving you any new strategy really. It's reminding yourself these are the things you do naturally. When you're in your everyday life, you're typically not trying to learn a bunch of random vocabulary for something in the future, unless maybe you want to become a lawyer, and so you're going to school. You need to study a particular test like the bar exam or something. In that case, you would be focusing on that, building your networks around that. So that's the natural thing you would be doing. But typically you don't just get random lessons of vocabulary that you don't do anything about. People don't do that in their native language. So you don't need to do it in English either. Okay, I promise you. And this is again, I mentioned faith up here, and I continue to repeat that word because you must let go. You must relax and allow these things to come to you and be focused on that thing as you're learning it. And it's very difficult, if you're thinking, often I talk about stuff like this because I have to teach people these things before they join my programs. Because if they don't, they will be expecting well, it's not what I expected. I want give me a translation, tell me what this means, and you don't get fluent that way. It's not how you get fluent. All right, you get fluent like this. So as you get more information, you absorb these things naturally, and that's how you start using them like a native speaker. So when you understand the language naturally, you can use the language naturally. All right? Any questions about that? Hopefully. All right, Keiko says, thank you so much. I'm relieved to hear that. I think I used it in the wrong way or used it in the wrong situation with the wrong person because I was so angry. Sorry about that. Wow. So this is what I love about Japanese people. They can be really angry, but still say the word please. Yes, and maybe, I guess, if you were speaking, you can tell me more, Keiko, about your particular situation. But yes, if we're being polite, then maybe we want to say, please don't do something. But if you're really angry at someone, you say, stop, don't ever do that. Don't do that to me, or don't do that, whatever. This is the kind of thing that we would say to kids. But usually after we give them hey, here's a quick warning about something. Be careful. Don't do that. Don't test me. So I will say this as a dad. So my younger daughter Noelle is particularly always trying to see what she can do. So she might take a pen or something or a spoon or whatever and tap on the table. And I will say, thank you, Noelle. Please don't do that. So I give her one warning. And then she'll look at me, and she'll tap the table again. And I say, okay, fine. And I come over and just take the spoon or whatever from her. So I'm being polite, but I'm being firm at the same time. So if I just say, please don't do that, please don't do that, and this is just important, parenting advice or whatever. If you tell your kids to not do something and then you don't stop them, then they won't listen to you. All right. But I won't go off on that. I am not relaxed. That is the problem. Yes. So I know a lot of people, Nils especially. I was talking with a German guy 2 days ago. So like an older guy, I think probably like maybe 60 or 70 years old, German guy, very like German. And we talked about like cultural differences, and he was talking about like part of this, like the rigidness typically in German, like German culture, German design. So it creates a lot of amazing things. But remember that we like to think that we can like figure out something if we have a problem or there's something wrong with our life or whatever, and that causes us to worry about things. All right, but I'll give you like another quick exercise about this just to make this point, because a lot of people, it's like they can't let it go. They have to be thinking like, well, what's going to happen in this situation, where they worry about different things. So let's say, for an example, people might do something like this. So let's say they have a problem or they have a decision they might make, and so they would have like the pros and the cons. So these are things like, what's a good reason to do something or a good reason to not do that thing. So maybe I have to move, I have an opportunity to move to a different country, all right, for some reason. So a pro is like, maybe I get to experience new things, or maybe I get paid more, or something like this. And so I list these different reasons up here. And then the cons, so the things that are negative, maybe like, well, I have to leave my family, and maybe, I don't know, I don't know the language, or something like that. So people will think like this, and it's in this same kind of column of how can I feel like comfortable because I've thought of enough of these things. All right. Now the truth is that like we don't really make decisions like this. Really, it's a feeling we get. We do all of these different things. We write the pros and the cons, and then we're just like, all right, well, how do I feel about that? And the reason we do that is because it's impossible to get a correct answer from something like this. It's impossible. All right. The reason it's impossible is because like, here's what happens today. We don't know what like decisions will happen like as a result of that. It's just too many things are possible. You know, we call these like the consequences of our actions. So this is we might be able to see this, like if I do this, then this happens. All right. And maybe we can see if this happens, then this happens over here. But we can't see like 20 steps in the future. It's impossible. And so you have to get much better at like relaxing into making decisions like this. So you can think a little bit about this, but I don't really spend much time doing this personally, because it's impossible to know if you made a good decision or not using this method. All right, I'm kind of going off on a tangent over here, but hopefully this makes sense. All right, so do your kids speak Japanese better than they do English? Yeah, I think their Japanese is better than their English because they spend more time in the day getting understandable messages in Japanese. So my daughters both go to school, and so they will be getting like every day the teachers and other friends and things like that. They're using that. So they only really get English from me at home, and like, you know, their mother speaks English as well. Or if they're watching some TV shows or something. So I have to be very specific and very focused about how I teach them. So if I only have like an hour or something with my kids, then I have to give them a lot of good lessons to make sure they can learn that. But they are much better than often kids I will see who have like, they don't speak any English at all. So even if one of their parents is an English speaker, the kids don't really speak much English. All right. So they would be better if I could have like even more time with them, but I have to make sure I give them that. All right, how do you all? Greetings from Somaliland. Nice to see you there. Hello. Practice makes perfect. Yes, again, like the practice that I'm talking about, the practice you get is when you're building a network of the different vocabulary that you need. That's the real practice you get. The practice is not about trying to learn words very quickly and then repeat those to yourself or to other people. Okay? So we want to build the network, and it's again, like I showed with that example of Om, you know, that the alien word that means furniture, or I just said it means furniture. It could mean wood or something. But if I'm teaching you different things, then you will learn them naturally as you get more examples. But you have to trust that process. You have to think like, if the first lesson, I'm not quite clear on it, many people will just quit. They're just like, okay, I don't get something, I don't understand it. And so like, I just need a translation. Give me a translation. You have to control yourself. You have to relax. You have to let it happen. Okay? It's the same way you got fluent in your native language. Remember when you were young, you would hear some vocabulary and you were like, I don't really know what that means. Like, I've heard that, but I have a general idea of what it might mean, but I don't know for sure. And so I need to hear that thing. And as you hear it again and again, there is a moment where you're like, now I got it. And that's where you can start using it fluently. That's where you really feel confident about the vocabulary. So the confidence comes naturally as you go through this process. It's really about relaxing and listening and allowing that stuff to come to you without you trying to force that. Okay, so you got to relax, especially the Germans watching this video. All right, let's see. Practice makes perfect. No pain, no gain. Let's study. No. Again, I don't want people to feel like this is a difficult process. This is where all the pain is over here. All right, the gain is over here. So the pain comes from like trying to do something that's not really working. Where you're like, okay, I keep learning more words, but why am I not speaking more fluently? It's because you're probably doing this. You're not getting enough of the few things that you do need, and you're getting too much of stuff that you don't need at all. All right, so let's finish this up. So number 5, what is the kind of natural conclusion of all of this? And the natural conclusion is that you should be focusing and continuing along the process. So we like just basically, I guess the best way to say it is to stick with the plan. And this is where we're going to jump from one thing to the next. So, and by this, I'm talking about how people learn, all right? So as you continue, once you understand this is what you should be doing, just keep doing it. It's it. That's all you have to do. Just keep doing it. So what happens with this is like this, all of this stuff, it never really gets you fluent, and that's why people try lots of different stuff to get fluent. They're like, well, maybe I should sing some songs, or maybe I should, I don't know, I should like write stuff while I'm standing on my head or something. All right, so they jump from approach to approach, and they think that something like, well, I must be special. There must be a different way that I should be doing something. This is the conclusion. This is what people believe, and so they try different things. Now, as an example, like this same process happens in business. So let's say you have someone who wants to start a business. They might try a bunch of different things. They're jumping from one idea to the next. Maybe today I try to sell ice cream, and tomorrow I'm trying to sell, I don't know, like weather balloons or something. And I think like the money is coming from the ice cream or the weather balloons or whatever else I'm doing, but it's actually the process that builds wealth. It's not like the particular thing I'm selling. Now there might be some things that are good in some times or whatever, like people don't really have horse carriages now, so you don't have like little whips to whip horses. That's something people probably wouldn't buy. But in general, if you stick with the plan of how business actually works and providing good value to people, you're probably going to do very well. It's just, can you continue doing it or not? So the natural thing that happens with people, like all of these different things, it's almost like two sides of ourself. And I know this all sounds a little bit like woo-woo or weird or something maybe for a language lesson, but I promise you, like if you kind of get attuned to this, if you feel this, if you recognize this about yourself, if you think like, I feel nervous, like you can feel that. Oh, this is like an actual feeling I have, like I'm trying to study everything, I feel overwhelmed, I'm not really remembering what I learned. It's because you're doing things on this side of this way of thinking. So you can do both of these things, but it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of practice to train yourself to do this. But it really just begins with having 100% attention. So while you're listening to a lesson or you're listening to a person you're speaking with, even in your native language, you can practice these things as well. So if you're listening to your friend while they're talking about something, try to take care not to think about what you're going to say next or what your laundry is doing or dinner or something like that. Try to give 100% attention because you're not worried about what's going to happen next. Like you know it will naturally take care of itself. All right. So we cannot, it's impossible for us to try to plan everything and figure everything out So we relax. We have to we call this word like to surrender to the process. You just let it happen. All right. And so if you apply that, this is a systematic way of understanding this idea. But I promise you, if you can do this, you will feel much better. You will feel more relaxed. And this will be not just for language learning, but for your life in general. All right. Let's see if anybody has any questions about this. But that is basically the lesson. Hopefully you understood that. All right, let's see here. So I hope the moments is coming. You would say the moments are coming. Yeah. And so as you learn, the more you focus on something, the faster like that thing will come to you. So you really want to get the understanding, and this is the kind of natural order of steps that you would follow to reach that. All right. Let's see. In this way, low pain, more gain. Yes. This is the natural way. The pain often comes from trying to not do this. I know it's very hard. I've told the story before about how there was a man, I think a Korean man, who bought one of my programs for his wife, but his wife really wanted translations. And so like she was still stuck over here. And so if you can make the mental switch to this over here, especially if this way is not working. So often this way is not working for people. This is how they find me. So they've been trying things and they're looking online like, how do you get fluent? How does this work? And like, okay, this is, I admit this is kind of a crazy language lesson. It's different certainly from what most people are teaching, because this is really what you need to get fluent. All right, let's see. Thank you, sir, for the motivation you just gave us. I got all what you just explained. My last question, how can I improve my speaking skills as I don't have any speaking partners? All right, so great question, another common question. Notice on this, like I don't mention anything about speaking with other people as a way to get fluent. That's not part of this process at all. And so a lot of learners they're still thinking over here about what I need to do in order to become a fluent speaker. But the fluency doesn't work like that. It's the actual opposite of pretty much everything over here. It's the opposite when you do it the natural way. So just like I talked about before, like the number one thing, the first thing that you learn is about divided attention. And this is where you're thinking about what you want to say in a conversation, because you think you need to speak in the conversation in order to become more fluent. But I've already shown you in this video, like as I've given you different examples of something, it's your understanding that gives you the fluency. And what we're really trying to do, we want to have like no doubt about what we're saying. We want to feel confident. We want to feel relaxed about things. And the only way to do that is to get more. We're trying to get more naturally varied review, where we're getting lots of examples of things. We're getting understandable messages rather than translations. All right. And so you don't need to speak in order to become more fluent. Speech is the result of getting all these examples. Because if we try to speak before we feel confident about something, we're not really improving. We're just repeating information we've heard. But we're not really expressing something like we really understand it. So you don't have to have a person in your life to speak with. You can be living on a mountain by yourself, not speak with anyone, and still become more fluent. It just means you're understanding the language more, so that when you do speak, when you do have an opportunity to communicate, or you're writing or something, then you will use the vocabulary fluently. All right? Remember that you probably spend most of your day not speaking. Most of your day, even in your native language, you're just getting lots of information from other people, like watching TV or TV shows or news, or reading newspapers or something like that. Most of it is not you speaking, but you're still learning more information. And as you learn more, you feel more confident about talking about something. Okay, so don't worry about not having, again, like I don't mention anything about having someone to speak with, because it's not necessary to do that. All right, let's see. How can one get naturally varied review from Peppa Pig or Paw Patrol? Good example. So if you're looking for something like, let's say there's a Paw Patrol episode about a particular thing, maybe like there's an episode, there's the kind of natural example of the vocabulary that you hear again and again as you watch a bunch of episodes of it. So just like you could watch a bunch of episodes of Friends and you hear certain words or phrases again and again, that's a kind of general way to improve. And so like in Paw Patrol, like one of the characters or a couple of them, they say like, Paw Patrol is on a roll. And like they're talking about like, you know, continuing to do something, or they're moving in some way. Like there's a physical idea of like rolling in a vehicle to some location, but it also means they're like continuing to be successful. And so there's like forward motion. All right, as you get those different examples, or you might even have like Ryder needs us. Like that's like a phrase you will hear again and again in the show, and it's teaching you at specific grammar point. It's like, oh, this thing needs that other thing. And so you can get specific with, like, let's say there's a TV show about them, I don't know, cooking something. You might want to also watch something else about like some other, you know, like it could be a cartoon or even could be a live person talking about making something. So some episodes are like more specific about, I don't know, maybe like some weird thing like they go into space or something like that. But look for more information that's about that same topic. So it might not be coming from the same source. So it might not all be Paw Patrol videos or Paw Patrol whatever, but you can certainly look at like other TV shows that follow that same thing. So it's the same thing with Peppa Pig or whatever. So as you watch a bunch of episodes of something, you will naturally get that vocabulary, but you can also focus on a particular topic from an episode. And then maybe you get that from different TV shows or other sources, like just regular YouTube videos. I talked in the, I don't know what video it was, a recent live video about how to get fluent with TV shows, and I talk more about this idea. So watch that video. All right, Drew, let's see. How many lessons in your program? How long should we study each lesson, please? That's Bruno. If you're talking about Fluent for Life, it's over 8 years worth of content in that program. And so you've got like, many years of content that you could focus on. The way to go through the lessons is, again, just like we're covering everything right here, we want to be focusing on a particular lesson set for a whole month. And I know this sounds like a lot of time. People are like, oh, like I don't want to review. Give me like individual lessons about like a whole bunch of different stuff. But then you don't remember it. You can't use it fluently. So you have to control yourself. You have to go through the process of learning more about the information, going deeper into it, hearing it from different people. And so you would focus on one lesson set for a month. And you go through each day learning in a different way with all of the lessons. And that's how you do it. And so as far as the amount of lessons, as I mentioned, there are 100. It's 8 years worth of content, but 100 lesson sets in the program. And so you can choose what you learn with. So the reason we give you so much content is because people have different needs, just like I talked about the natural preparation over here. So you don't want to force yourself to learn about something like, I'm not going to be as a teacher. Okay, today, guys, we're going to talk about how to fix motorcycles. And maybe you don't care about fixing motorcycles. And yes, you can learn some vocabulary there that will be helpful in other situations, but it's much better to learn with something you're really interested in. So we have like lesson sets about sales and marketing, lessons about taking care of pets, lessons about all kinds of things, like business or academic life or being a lawyer or whatever, lots of different things so that people can focus on the specific information they want. But as you go through one set, you will feel yourself becoming more fluent within that first 30 days. And then you just repeat that process. That's how it works. All right, and also like if you're not in the program, you can click on the link in the description below this video to learn more about that. And the link for Frederick is down there as well. Let's see, and Kabdali, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, personal imaginative thoughts often dominate the mental focus and attention, so best how to deal with this. Yeah, so often you might be like, I am not an expert about like how to calm the monkey mind, but I know that like often we get signals about the things we should focus on. And so if I feel like I'm naturally interested in something, like me personally, I like, I don't know, let's say I like, like raising goldfish. That's like a passion of mine. All right, it's not really, but just as an example. But my dad he says like, well, there's no future in goldfish. You need to become a lawyer or something like that. So there, like, he is the kind of rational mind telling me like what I should do to make money. And I'm thinking like, well, I really like goldfish or whatever. Now I can probably figure out a way to make money with goldfish if that's what I'm talking about. But this is a way for controlling your mind, is actually to like, to allow the strongest focus to feed that. And so maybe you probably know this, maybe you've heard this before, the word flow or the phrase flow state. Or we also describe this as being like in the zone. In the zone, in a flow state, it just means like where you're naturally providing focus into some area or whatever that is, and you don't get distracted by other things. So this could happen while you're playing a sport, or while you're learning about something, or while you're in a conversation. So it's almost like time stops and you just naturally get absorbed in that information. And this happens if the more you start listening to yourself, so you kind of listen to your body, you can feel what you're interested in, and also like what the things you need in your life are. So if you hear, I don't know, somebody like in your life is talking about moving, or you keep getting like signals about that. Usually they start very quiet and they get louder over time, but if you listen to those things, and you don't let the kind of natural thoughts happen of like, well, what's going to happen if we do this? That's the kind of natural, the fears and worries that come out when we start living this way. So I want you to be living and learning this way as well. All right, let me know if that makes sense. All right, let's see. Richard says 100%. All right, and Keiko says, I got it. Glad to hear it, with a lovely smiley face. All right, like Eunice says, perfect. I appreciate your help. Teaching your lessons are really helpful for me. I wish you all the best, and happy Father's Day. Yes, it's Father's Day. Any fathers out there, happy Father's Day if you're watching this yesterday. So I'm already the day after Father's Day, but I had a nice Father's Day with my family yesterday. I went to Nils, you will appreciate this, and my German friends out there. There was an Oktoberfest in Nagasaki this past week. So they had it in June instead of October. I don't know why they do that, but it was great. I had a lovely, had some German beer. It was delicious. All right, let's see. Mher, Mar, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hi, Drew. Can you tell us the importance of consistency in learning a language? Yeah. So again, that's the last step down here. So I could just put like being consistency. I like to say to like stick with the plan, just to give you a more natural native way of saying this. But this just means once you know what works, keep doing it. That's all you have to do. It's like the easiest thing in the world. Like, once you know, like, if I get fluent in English the way I get fluent in my native language, I will become a fluent speaker. It's like I've never had anyone prove that this doesn't work. Never. Like not once, not one person ever has given me a good argument as to why this would not work. Not one. But I do have people that will be like either lazy, or they will just like, they really stick to these things and they feel they really have to learn this way over here. And so I can't fight people. All I can say is, look, like if this way is not working for you, try this instead. All right. So I don't know anybody who gets fluent by doing these things, but many people continue to do them. All right. But I can't stop anybody. I can only do this. And this is what I do personally for myself as a language learner. All right. So I'm also doing these things, and it's like, oh, like, wow, I figured out how to learn. I should continue doing that. All right. Same thing. All right. Let's see. So flow state is when you're concentrating on one thing so much that you can't get distracted easily. Yes, that's a basic idea, to be in a flow state. So it can happen while you're doing something physically or while you're doing something else, whatever. All right, Rodrigo, nice to see you again. True, in a typical week, I'll speak in my mother tongue for no more than half an hour, and I'm still fluent just because I'm constantly getting in contact with meaningful content in that language. Yes. And so this is why I remind people, it's like, hey, just remember, you're not speaking most of the day. Even a person who is a professional speaker, like me, I wouldn't call myself a professional speaker. I don't go out and give speeches or whatever. But even that, I don't spend much time doing that at all. Most of my day is just like listening and learning stuff. And then when I have an opportunity, I will speak. But it's amazing what happens when you start following this system. You let it naturally happen. you will automatically find ways like, hey, I just learned that vocabulary and here it is. Now I have an opportunity to use it in a conversation. It's amazing how that happens. But you just have to relax and allow it to happen. You can't try to plan it all out in advance. I know that's the natural thing, but it's really just like the fear and worry that drives you for that. If you'd like to stop doing that, the way to do it is just to remember it's not possible to have complete control over that. I think like the whole planet right now is a little bit messed up because we have like, there's so much fear and worry in kind of like the world. Generally, people want to try to control everything. But if you can relax and let it happen, like natural things will happen and usually you will be successful as a result of that. Let's see. Adrian says, can I do 2 or more lessons in a day? Will still follow the monthly plan since one lesson may only take 15 minutes a day. Is that advisable? If you want to try to do that, it's okay. But I would caution you, like even if you feel like you know something, like you could try to do more, but if you're not really feeling like you're remembering it more, then it's probably not a good idea to do that. So I know it seems like kind of a slower process where you're focusing and you really want to get more information. If you have a lot of time, I would recommend like adding more to the lesson sets. So as an example, if you're going to follow one lesson, I would get more outside information for that. So if the lesson set is about I don't know, fashion or whatever, then watch some YouTube videos about people talking about fashion. So get more information about that particular topic. That's a better idea that will help you focus more and give you a lot more naturally varied review than just what we cover in the lesson set. So we can't cover everything. That's not possible. But you can add your own information on top of the lessons that will make the lessons more valuable. All right? So I would recommend you do it that way. Eunice again, less is more. Stay tuned for more tips with Drew. Good luck with everyone. See you. Take care. All right. Nils says, that is great. Glad to hear it. Love to see the hearts and smiley faces over there. All right. Link says, how much time can it take while the quantity of information turns into the quality of speech? I mean, relaxing version. Well, again, like if you've learned anything from me in videos, I don't know how many videos of mine you've seen, but the fluency can actually develop like almost instantaneously if you understand something. So again, I'm trying to give you the aha moment, and the aha moment is the moment of understanding where you feel you really own something and now you feel confident using it. So as an example, like in Japanese, for like years, I had trouble with the difference between like, let's say like made and made ni. And I was just like, oh man, why can't I figure this out? Like logically, I understand what this is, but like, and it's so similar, but I just couldn't get it. And then finally I got the aha moment, it was just the right example at the right time, and that helped me. So typically if you're learning by yourself, like you might have those instances where you're trying to learn something and it feels like it's taking forever. Like you feel like it's, like I don't get it. I don't understand what this is. And so what I try to do as a teacher, I want to get like the lessons that seem like they've been most helpful for the most number of people, and then give those things as quickly as possible so that you're trying to move through those and you get the aha moment as fast as you can. And again, like even for people in Fluent for Life, if they still have questions, they just post in the comments or send us an email and we answer that, and most people are like, now I got it. Okay? So that's how you would get the information, and it really can happen very quickly when you learn that way. All right, let's see. And then Keiko with more smiley faces. Look at that. All right. Well, I think my time is almost finished here, but hopefully this makes sense. I recommend you go back and watch this again if you started late, so the video will be available on the YouTube channel. You can watch it there. But hopefully, I keep repeating myself, but hopefully you understand this. This makes sense. This way over here, like it's going to feel like there's a lot of pain for very little gain over here. This way is much easier, lets you relax, like you kind of let life come to you as it needs to come to you. All of those things will happen. And this took me a while to understand as just like a person and a learner. But I promise if you try these things, especially this one, this is the easiest thing you can do right now in your life. It's also the most difficult. So this one, but about trying to give attention to the things that you are giving attention to. So if you're in a conversation with someone, give them your attention. I know it's hard to not think about the laundry or whatever. Like this mind will come into your mind. It will say, what about the laundry? I said, don't worry about the laundry. The laundry will be okay. You know, I kind of have it's in my life, this is more like my wife over here will give me this stuff. And so I have to, my wife and I work well together because we have this blend. So I have to teach her about this, and she's like, well, you know, you gotta make sure you wash your hands, you know. So she reminds me about this stuff. But I say, like, look, you know, there's a lot we don't know. And it's much better if we kind of relax and let it happen, all right? So I think we'll end it there. Let's see, oh, look, we've got a few more comments very quickly. Dran says, speaking of rip, that's what Drew's brand of shirt are you wearing? It fits you nice, LOL. Okay, well, just regular, you know, I can't really find shirts. I'm looking for t-shirts here in Japan. People need to send me some t-shirts. I'm definitely not going to rip this t-shirt, but like I could probably maybe try to rip it over here. All right, a lot of pain for a little gain. I think that was like that. Yes. Is that an idiom? Well, the idiom is no pain, no gain, and that's typically like for this. But the kind of pain that comes from this process is just getting your mind, it's reminding yourself, hey, relax, relax. I don't need to study 10,000 words. I need to study 10 words and know them very well. And in any area of your life, like this is the successful way that a few people are doing, and this is the difficult way that most people are doing. Doesn't matter if it's business or language learning or learning like a sport or anything like that. Just relax, relax, relax. Remind yourself to relax. All right. Neil says, thank you, and thanks for the great lesson as always. I'm enjoying your program, says Sayudi. Yes, I'm glad to hear it. Yes. So Sayudi started with the visual guide to phrasal verbs, I believe. All right. Thank you, Drew, says Dran. Yes, relax, get more information. Remember, this is another thing you can think about. Like, if you're still not understanding something, then go get more information about that thing. Don't move on to the next topic or whatever. If you're like, yeah, I don't really get it, like it just means you need more review of that topic. But when you get that aha moment, that's where you really feel excited. You're like, yes, I finally got it. Just like this for like Mare and Mare Ni. I was like, oh, look at that, I got it now. Now I can use it, and I feel confident about that. All right, but it's not because I like repeated the word again and again. I just, Mare Ni ne, wakare ne. Now I understand what that means. All right. All right, if anybody has more questions, it looks like that's the end of this lesson, but thank you very much for joining me. If you would like to, please like the video. Click that little like button. I should see like some little likes going up. Click that like button. Click that like button. Let YouTube know that you enjoyed this so more people can find videos like this that help them get fluent. And also you can click on the links in the description below this video to learn more about Frederick and Fluent for Life. They all follow these same principles, and they will help you get fluent much faster. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.